Hello, and welcome to Bodied, a Cloud9 fan cast. I'm your host, Havoc Post, joined with my partner in crime, as always, Frozen Creek.
What up? What up?
And we got a pretty hype episode for everyone. I'm not gonna lie. We're gonna get to the exciting stuff in a little bit, but we're gonna ease into it. First, we're gonna talk about some other stuff that happened first, starting with some really interesting news.
This is probably the most hype episode we've ever had.
I really think it is. I haven't been as excited for C9 since I'd say probably either the Major or the Overwatch League championship. I think so. It's been
same.
a while.
I will say that the right script writers are on point this year. Our 100th podcast is our next episode, and it's not gonna be a sad one, no matter what happens. But it's set up for some cool things. We've been doing this for 2 years now at this point. I think
so. Yeah, around 2 years. So
it took us
we've
2
experienced
years
a lot of ups and
to
downs.
get this long. Wow. Okay. Well, we do have a pack show, so let's jump into it.
Yeah. So first interesting story. There was a Forbes article that came out yesterday, maybe Monday, basically sort of listing sort of the valuations for esports organizations, and they kind of ranked a bunch of them, and Cloud9 was listed at the top. They were valued at $310 million, and what's also very interesting is our rival TSM was second at like 200 or so million. So we beat them by like $100 million, which is, I think, really funny.
Yeah, it turns out that winning things and doing well on the big stage adds up. And that's not just in League of Legends, where they have won more in the past couple years, but it also counts everything else that's going on, like a successful Rocket League team, a successful CSGO team in the past year, I guess, a successful Clash Royale team for the most part, some really good Battle Royale teams. Like, all that adds up. So Jack's done an incredible job with this team, organization, company. Yeah,
he's also managed it pretty well from a PR perspective too, because when you look at other organizations, like just looking at like what Optic or 100 Thieves have done just like recently, like everyone is angry at 100 Thieves for not really being that transparent about stuff regarding Cody Sun. Everyone's upset at Optic.
Well, we did have that little PR mishap with the whole benching.
No. Well, we're not going to count that. All of it was justified. We've already said our piece about this.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm just saying that was a shit show. But other than that, yeah, you're right. They've pretty much done everything right and by the books. It seems like Cloud9's done a really good job of hiring the right staff more than anything else.
I think Cloud9 really puts their time into making sure that anyone that gets put into their organization, they fit well. It's not just like, oh, we're going to put them in because they're super talented. It's that like, okay, they're super talented, but also they fit in with what's already in place, so we don't have to completely restructure things. For the most part, that's kind of going on with CSGO at the moment. But for the most part, like as a whole, they usually do a good job.
Yeah, and that's probably why they haven't hired me to do anything, because they're doing a good job and want to keep it that way.
Yeah,
but I've never actually applied for anything.
I have never.
So that might also be part of it.
I put in a couple applications through LinkedIn, and I never heard anything, which hurt my feelings.
But that's beside the point.
Yeah. Also, before I move on, I also wanted to talk about some interesting news. It looks like Drake, like the rapper Drake, is a co-owner of 100 Thieves now.
I think that solidifies it as like the biggest diva brand, and that's over TSM at this point. I think.
I think it's smart just in that it's becoming more of a trend to see rich celebrities invest in esports because it's sort of becoming the new basketball where everyone was like, well, I have to get like a basketball team or like a hockey team or something, or at least invest in one and be like a big part in it. And esports is showing that, hey, this is just as big and could probably be even bigger, and it grows probably twice as fast, and which means you probably get your money twice as quicker, and it's just really popular right now. So it makes a lot of sense to see sort of rich celebrities, especially young celebrities like Drake, who, Drake plays video games. Drake likes video games. So to see him invest into an esports team, it's kind of not surprising.
No, it's not, and we've seen big personnel indies invest in it before, so it is cool to see like the biggest not social biggest. Oh man, I'm blinking on the word. Biggest like people in the world today. Like his music has such a far reach that it's cool to see him invest in something when his investment could actually make it bigger just because of like the social network that he has. So it is pretty cool, but they still suck.
Yeah, I'm not gonna forgive them for what they did to Cody Sun and how they did it. They're gonna have to try real hard in order to win back the community. They can't just get Drake to come up and play a couple of his songs and say like, oh, are we good now? No.
All right, well, let's move on.
Moving on. So I did want to talk a little bit about our Counter-Strike team and what's going on with that. They've been just doing a bunch of like ESL Pro League and ECS type like online match type stuff. They had some 2-0s. I think it's mostly been either 1-1s or 0-2s from what I can recall and what I've seen. The team is looking for a permanent fifth because Ska again announced that he was stepping away from the game, which is like his second or third time, and we mentioned this last week. But it looks like the four other players are kind of getting into a groove. I'm not sure exactly how strong they are, just because again they're probably also trying to figure out who their fifth is going to be, as well as I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily sold on Flusha, as it's a really awkward situation. I don't want to say that I'm not sold on Flusha because I'm sure he's good, but I think the issue is that everyone's performance is in a weird spot, and I'm not sure if you can put a pin in anyone and say, okay, yes, them, for sure. If you're not going to continue to shuffle this even more, keep them. Maybe I would say maybe Automatic and Golden, because Golden seems like a really solid IGL, and Automatic seems pretty flexible with whatever. But it's just the team is in a weird spot right now, and there's not really a lot we can really talk about since I haven't even been really paying attention to matches that closely just because Scott, Skadoodle is planning to leave, so we can't. I can't really judge their performance much because if you're just gonna switch him out with someone new, what's the point?
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. I think that they're trying to take the appropriate amount of time to find their last player to add to the squad, because they've made some recent additions. Obviously, Europeans, which is kind of I guess kind of a big thing. And
I mean, you have to get European players now. It's just the game. I think and this is what I assume. I'm not totally 100% sure, but I think it is kind of big in North America, but it's super big in Europe. And so a lot of talent is coming from Europe, and a lot of the big, really successful talent is European. So I think some teams are really just biting the bullet and saying, okay, we're going to have to bring on European players because there's a lot more of them, and a lot of them are super talented. And I believe rumor is that Cloud9 is going to stay a North American team by bringing in a unknown talent. I think they're going to be looking at bringing on someone unknown to fill in Scott's spot. And that's just the rumor. That's not for sure. But I wouldn't be surprised considering I'm not sure how good, at least on the big scale, international competitions, how good the rest of North American talent is that you could get as a replacement, as well as you're just going to stagnate the scene more if you're just shuffling around player names for the upteenth time.
Yeah, I really would like to see them invest in more of an unknown and a younger player they can really mold to be a key block for the future. As long as the game goes, I'm not sure what the plans are beyond on the next a year or two, but I think it would be sweet to see someone learn the ropes as a Cloud9 person and just kind of always be that Cloud9 person like Sneaky has. Obviously it's a different time, but it would be cool to see them bring in someone like that.
I mean, it worked for Stewie 2K, right? Like, from the stories that I've read, people were actually somewhat upset because they signed this no-name kid who looked super good on ladder but was never really battle tested, and they brought in Stewie 2K, and he turned out to be one of the biggest assets for Cloud9. And they immediately made him the face of the team. He was always given a lot of resources, and he was one of the big reasons why we won the major. So I would not be surprised if we tried to replicate that somewhat and just say, fuck it, we'll train someone from the ground up in our system rather than having to sort of deprogram to some extent and then reprogram in our ecosystem versus like a G2 or a Fnatic system or something.
Yeah, and it is always cool to see new investments in a new and youthful players pay off in the future. So
yeah, for sure. But that's really all I have on that. I don't suppose you have anything else. There's really not a lot to talk about for Counter-Strike at the moment.
Nope, not at all.
All right, well, moving on. We're going to talk about Clash Royale. So we haven't talked about it a bunch, and it's really sort of a team that has been flying really low under the radar for a lot of C9 stuff. Like, in the Discord, it's not really announced that much. No one's really talking about it on the subreddit, but it does exist, and I just keep forgetting to talk about results. But the team was in the playoffs. They were in the quarterfinals against TSM, and they got destroyed. And it was really hard to watch just because it seemed super one-sided. So it was just like this wiping of the floor, TSM just wiping the floor with us, and it was bad.
Oh, which is wild to see after how dominant we were during the regular season, because we did look really good.
We're dominant. I was
pretty much the whole thing.
unsure. I was somewhat unsure about how the team could go long term because a lot of their matches were basically won on King of the Hill. So they would most likely, and I think how this was the pattern for the most part. They'd lose the 2v2, play in the 1v1, win the 1v1, and then take it to playing a King of the Hill match, and then just straight buy in King of the Hill. And they did that for a lot of the regular season. to where it would be like win one and then lose one, or lose one, win one, and then just win King of the Hill. So they had, shaky victories, and they were able to scooch by into getting to the quarterfinals. And then I think that a lot of teams just maybe at the tail end, because they used to be at the top spot, but then they lost a few in a row to bring them out of getting that bye. And so I think a lot of the teams were just like, okay, well, this is how they play. We can make our decks to kind of counter them a bit more. And then they just sort of counter strategized against the team. So I think that's maybe what it was. I'm not an expert, so I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I went to a soccer game, unfortunately, but I'm disappointed to hear how it went.
Yeah, it was not the funnest thing to watch. But I guess that's all. I mean, we don't. This is just a short segment. I don't think we have a lot more to say on that. So let's move on to something a bit brighter, and that is the British Hurricanes, Cloud9's Overwatch Tier 2 team. You have the London Spitfire, that's the Tier 1 team, that's the Overwatch League team, and then you have the Contenders team, which is the Tier 2 team for sort of Overwatch League, I guess. But the British Hurricanes managed to basically go undefeated in the European Seasons 3 Contenders Trials, which means they're back, they auto-qualified, they're back into Season 3 of Contenders, which is really great. They dropped out of Season 2, I think due to a mix of the meta being really weird, as well as they had to sign on some new players, and the players that they were playing with were not working out as well as the Season 1 roster that allowed them to win a championship.
Yeah, I actually didn't get a chance to watch any of these either, but they were a really strong last year, and I would have been pretty disappointed if they didn't make it back. So I'm glad that they were able to pull through and come up with that.
I've seen a few of their games, and they looked really dominant. Like they're winning a lot of fights. Like it looks like it's really hard to really beat them, just trying to like outfight them. And even then, I think that the Hurricanes like make it really hard for you to beat them. Like it's actually really interesting to watch. It's really sort of a resurgence to their Season 1 form, and I think they've worked out a lot of kinks that really hurt them in Season 2 and caused them to drop out of Season 2 Contenders. So I think they're excuse me. I think they're back onto that form, and I think that they can, I think that they could probably win Contenders all over again.
Yeah, I think that they're probably in a prime position to do that, and that they would probably be considered one of the favorites going into the actual season coming up. Do you know when that starts by any chance?
That's a good question. I'm not sure when Season 3 starts. Let me look real quick and see if they have the date up on their website. Their website doesn't update super frequently.
Yeah,
so it could be.
Yeah, that's been like the biggest problem with most.
That's
like,
the problem with Contenders. Like they don't,
or just in general. Like I know, yeah, like even the Cloud9 website's not always up to date either.
Yeah, and like the Overwatch League website, I think is kept up to date a lot more on like what's going on. So I think they're trying to be like, no, we want to promote talent in sort of the lower tier scenes, but then they don't like really keep up with it as much.
Yeah. In the meantime, do you know when Overwatch League starts?
Overwatch League starts in February.
February, Jesus.
Yeah,
that off season's.
They're having a long off season. I hope they kind of do more stuff in between to keep it shorter, because I know there's issues with a lot of players have come out and said that like season 1 was just brutal, like scheduling wise. Like everyone was like all the players, not our players included, they're just exhausted by like doing scrims and a bunch of other stuff. It was just like everyone just had like no energy near the end.
Yeah, I know the burnout over just a month for League of Legends is rough during Worlds. I couldn't imagine like doing that for. It was the good part of quite a few months. It took for they didn't call them splits. They call them something else, but
Call
that
them
was a lot of
stages.
work.
Overwatch League
Maybe
did stages.
stages. Yeah, maybe they should give them a week or two off, or an extra week off in between stages, and like don't change the actual start time of the new stage, and just let the season go on like 2 or 3 weeks longer. I feel like that would maybe be the better solution to burnout, but
And I can't remember what they've said, but they have said that for season 2 they have changed how the schedule works so that players do not get burnt out as quickly or as often. I'm not sure
okay,
exactly
good.
what they have changed. I can't remember, but I know that changes are in place for season 2 to make that less rough on the players.
Good. Are you still looking that up?
Oh no. It doesn't matter.
All right. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, so let's move on to the meat of this episode, the hypest part of this episode. Cloud9 putting us on Cloud9 as they defeat the Afreeca Freaks, Korea's last chance, 3-0 in a best of 5. How did you feel after that victory, Frozen?
It was something. I didn't give us the best chance going in. I think maybe before I said at best a 40% chance, but like I don't want to say we beat the shit out of them, but we convincingly showed them that we were the better team throughout 3 games.
I was really surprised, yeah, that just that Afreeca looked so poor in comparison to how Cloud9 played, especially in game 1. Like Cloud9 manhandled them game 1, and it was really just like, wow, they just crushed them. And I think that really just tilted Afreeca first off, and then game 2 happened where there was some dicey moments, but like the interesting thing about the whole series was that there were some weird fights sometimes, and there were some off moments, but C9 for the most part kept control of the map for the whole thing. Like they never really fell into like a turret deficit. They were always either even or ahead in structures. So
Yeah.
like Afreeca was basically playing not to lose, and Cloud9 was just playing their own game and saying like, okay, we're gonna fight you a bunch, we're gonna win, and then we're gonna take your Nexus.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just came down to a misunderstanding of the meta. KT fell against IG Invictus Gaming, the Chinese team, and Genji fell out of the groups. But I feel like what the overwhelming weakness and glaring weakness in their team in any Korean squad was they just didn't look prepared to play how any of the other teams wanted to play. Like maybe Korea's not like the quote unquote best team fighting team or team fighting region, but like they're second just a little bit behind China, and they can out team fight anybody else pretty much consistently. But I feel like what the biggest difference was between most of the West and East teams was that the Western teams like Fnatic, Cloud9, G2 were willing to just jump in and fight and turn the games into a a Fiesta, and that the Korean teams weren't able to keep up with that. Like engaged champs are really big. We saw Lissandra, Ornn, Thresh, Alistar, all throughout the games, and it was obvious that Korea just couldn't keep up with fighting over the smalls and stupidest things, and that was kind of like the equalizer between the teams. Was if you can't set up your vision and keep your vision cleared without fighting, then you're not going to have a good time. So what do you think about that kind of hypothesis, I guess?
I think that's pretty correct. I think the issue definitely was that I think towards the beginning of the actual tournament, or maybe like in the middle of it, teams figured out that just constant team skirmishing and big team fights were a lot more effective in the current place of the game versus slow, controlled, methodical gameplay, which is what Korea excels at. That's what they've always excelled at. Every Worlds up until this point has been Korea just displaying calculated, methodical gameplay. But this Worlds, it completely turns itself on its head because now team fighting is just way more optimal. Why waste 20 minutes just trading towers and putting yourself in weird spots because it's all about timing rotations when you can just punch your opponent in the eye and then maybe get like smaller quick advantages now rather than playing for some weird long con. It just feels a lot better, and that's how a lot of Western teams just operated in their respective regions anyway. So it's just like, oh, this is just like the NALCS, perfect. And I think that's why Cloud9 and like G2 and Fnatic and Vitality, even though they got kicked out, were able to excel, while even teams like Team Liquid, I think, lagged behind because they were trying to still play sort of the old way rather than the way that was established in the middle of the tournament.
Yeah, like most of the Worlds, at least since I've been watching 3 years or so, like it's always been a Korea favored meta where they can kind of play their macro game as opposed to fighting at these micro points in the game. But I think one of the biggest things that we've talked about now, but there's a Mike Tyson quote for it, that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And you could see teams like Cloud9, IG, and such throwing punches endlessly throughout the game. Like they weren't scared to pick fights they should lose. They weren't scared to pick fights that they should win. And it all came down to the fact that Korea expected the game to be played slower than it was, and Cloud9 said no. And there was nothing they could do about that, because in past years we haven't seen such high engaged champions.
For sure. I think also, I'm curious, do you think that our players, so comparing like looking at this roster versus last year's roster, what's really interesting is we don't have, I think, the biggest skill wise, right? Like we have like 3 rookies, and as well as like Sven Skaren, who has had like a rocky sort of career up until this point, basically. Looking at our players, they don't have maybe the impressive skill range that maybe like a Korean team had. Like Genji had like supposedly more skilled players. Afreeca supposedly should have more skilled players, but do you think that our teamwork and perhaps just maybe our crazy capacity to like pull in clutch like Licorice did with that sick Baron steal is what sort of made us be more of the superior team in our matches?
Yeah, and I think that there was also growth inside the micro too. Like you could see, besides the first game against RNG, where Uzi beat the shit out of Sneaky. Like, there weren't really too many points in time where we were just completely out microed in lane. I mean, there were a lot of solo kills, which is probably my biggest concern going into semis. But like, we kept up laning wise in pretty much every lane, no matter what. Like, even in that third game, Licorice was beating Keen and Farm in an unfavorable matchup for most of that game, and there was no reason he should have. There was a solo kill on Sneaky, but like, there are a lot of places that we have improved, and I think if we were to put this year's team into a fight against last year's team, that we would probably win. But I think that would be a fun match to watch, like a last year's best quarterfinals team versus this year's best quarterfinals team, like maybe game one. I'm not.
It would definitely be interesting because last year's team had a lot, I think, more individual skill. Like Smoothie is a really good support in his own right. You know, Jensen, that was the year that Jensen was just popping off like a madman and just doing everything by himself. And, you know, you also had Contracts in the jungle who was looking really promising and looking really great. And then you had like Impact and Ray in the top lane, sort of having like a tank carry strategy depending on who was in. So it was really interesting. And I think this year's team, I think our comms are just a lot better. Like Zazel is a lot calmer and he's able to sort of direct the team in a much better fashion. And I think he's maybe a bit. Zazel is more proactive than Smoothie was reactive. Smoothie was a very good reactive player, but I think Zazel is more good at communicating things like, okay, well, if we do this, what happens next? And he's able to kind of think a step ahead. And also, I think Jensen, playing a lot of supportive champions, he's able to maybe be more of a team player rather than having to be the sole focus. And I think Licorice is just this Swiss Army knife that can do everything. So it would be a really good matchup just to kind of see the different styles of Cloud9 having to play against each other.
Yeah. One last thing before we move on to the Fnatic series for semis. What do you think the highest point of the quarterfinals was?
I'm going to say that Baron steal, because if Licorice didn't steal that Baron, we probably would have lost that game. But he was able to just doofully walk up his Ornn and just kind of poke it with his, give a little bot with his cute little Ornn hammer and kill the Baron. And I think at that moment, Afreeca Freaks just like tilted off the face of the earth. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more embarrassing things that Afreeca did, but Licorice was super calm and collected during that 2v5 fight at Baron, and he was able to walk away with it, even though he literally had no reason not to, or he had no business doing that. So, yeah, that was pretty sick.
For sure.
And
right, well,
that was the best shoutcaster call in the actual regular or in the actual regular.
Was about to like just have his voice go out because he was yelling really hard.
But the best call so far is still, who was it?
I think it was Riv doing that horse noise.
Yeah, that was so fucking ridiculous. Oh, we didn't get a chance to talk about that before groups, but that was by far the best shoutcasting moment if you count play-ins. But if not, then Freak, being the freak he is, was fun. It was hype. So I don't have anything else I want to add about quarterfinals. So,
ready?
Do you have anything else?
No, I don't. Let's move on to talking about us beating Fnatic. So this weekend, I believe it's Sunday. What is it? Is it the same times as before, or are the times different?
It is Sunday. Sunday our time, 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. You know your time zone to convert from those two.
Sunday.
I understand. My biggest gripe is that there's 3 Western teams and the time zone is just fucking terrible for it.
I mean, at least they like are trying to maybe be a bit accommodating to Western audiences. I know it does.
No.
I mean,
no
it does kind of suck that you have to wake up that early.
1 a.m. a Pacific time.
Okay, so
that's just not going to be over
Central Boy.
4 a.m.
It's fine with me.
3 a.m.
You know, I'm good with waking up or staying up.
Both of those are awful options. There's no good way to watch this as a Western team, and I assume that this was set before the tournament, and that there was no anticipation of there being 3 Western teams, especially a North American team, because in Europe it's not as bad. Like that's 8 a.m., 9 a.m. for most of them, so they'll still be able to wake up at a normal time and watch. But for Cloud9 fans, it just sucks. Maybe there's not a better way to do it, but I'm just saying that it sucks. That's about it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, no one really likes waking up that early or having to stay up. So, but
I mean, there's a difference between waking up early or staying up, and then there's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
2 totally different things. But all right, let's actually move on to the game. So we are playing Fnatic in our semifinals. The other semi is Invictus Gaming IG from China versus G2, which is pretty wild. Fnatic, I know on the dive, and a lot of the audio I've been hearing from casters, analyzers, and shit like that is that Fnatic was arguably the best team in quarterfinals. So we have our hands full going against another Western team. Do you think we would be better off against a team like Fnatic, or do you think we'd be better off facing against an Asian team?
I think Fnatic is probably our best bet. So when did we last play Fnatic? We played them at Rift Rivals, right? And I believe we 2-0'd them at Rift Rivals. Now, this was like a year ago. The game was different then. But we did 2-0 Fnatic, I believe. Maybe we went 1-1. It was either 1-1 or 2-0 because we went 0-2 against Unicorns, and the other team was G2. Regardless.
Yeah, and I think that Fnatic actually has a shout to win the championship this year. And I don't want to say that the winner of this matchup is the favorite to win the final, but I feel like they pretty much could be the favorite. Just based on the fact that if it's us, we got through Fnatic, and if not, Fnatic was already arguably the best team there. Just some stuff about Fnatic. They play just pretty much as fast as we do. Their average game time is one of the lowest in the entire tournament. The only teams slower or faster than them were G-Rex and 100 Thieves, and there's a reason their games were as fast as they were, and that's because they suck and got their ass kicked. There's a lot of kills in their games. They have 0.04 more combined kills in their games, and they do a really good job getting advantages early, which is something that we actually do well too. They have the highest early game rating at Worlds right now, tied with KT.
I've always considered Fnatic to be sort of like Europe's C9, just because they play really similarly to us, and I think like how their approach to the game and everything is like really similar to ours. So it should be a really interesting match. Um, I have nothing really to say. I think that Fnatic is beatable, but I think it's going to be tough because Fnatic's roster is really strong. Like you have Bwipo and Soaz in the top lane, and they've both looked really good. Then you have Broxa in the jungle, who has been playing out of his mind. You have Caps, who is always really strong. You know, he seems to just be good on everything. And then you have Reckless, who the team usually plays around. And if you give Reckless resources, he just kills your whole team. So it's going to be really tough to really come up with a strategy and try and work around all of them.
Yeah, they have arguably four of the best positions in the West. Reckless is obviously arguably one of the best ADCs. He was saying he's a fucking boss, and I would probably put him as the best support in the West. Caps, people have been hyping him up as probably the best Western player mechanically, at least. And Brox has played like a monster this whole tournament. So, but even saying that, I do think that this team has weaknesses. In the mid lane, Jensen is a lot more experienced than Caps. Caps, you can maybe argue, is maybe quote unquote better, but he's made some pretty dumb decisions so far in lane. So I think that is one of our highest priority positions to play through is through Jensen. I think that if we can get Jensen onto a decent laning pick, that he can snowball through that and carry some of our later mid game and late game fights. That would be my position to play through.
I agree. I think also we should maybe at least give Licorice something that he can play really well and not mind going even to maybe a bit behind. What we saw with Sneaky, you know, you give him something like Lucian, like a really aggressive lane pick. Sneaky can do really well. So I think that the bottom half of the map is pretty good. And I think really all you need to worry about is making it so Licorice doesn't get too far behind and is on something that he can be impactful without having to have a lot of resources put into him, which he has shown
Just
that he
to
can
add
do.
on to my last point, super quickly, then you can go back. Jensen's the third mid laner at Worlds and gold difference at 10 behind a rookie of IG and perks of G2. And Caps is actually dead last in mid laners at gold difference at 10.
Stats. But yeah,
If
I mean,
you look at I think you do make a good point about the top lane. Licorice and Bwipo, sorry, are actually pretty close among some key stats. So I do think our solo lanes are our key to winning the match.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't have much else to say. You know, just draft well. Oh, play well. Don't try not to lose. And that's about it.
Yeah, and one thing that we saw Cloud9 do during the Afreeca series is just completely outdraft them in what the meta seems to be about, and it seems to be like a mid game meta and skirmish early, and Cloud9 did a really good job drafting that over Afreeca. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out against Fnatic.
I think it'll be a lot tougher since Fnatic actually also understands how to play in this meta. So it could be rough.
Yeah, I'm looking at their games right now. So it actually doesn't look like they're picking too many skirmish heavy early games. They have a Sivers and Zhao Ornn game, Aurelia, Elise, and Swain in one game, which is interesting, and that would probably be considered more of a mid-game team because they do have the Ezreal. And then in another, they have the Victor Top, Aurelia, and Broxa on Zinzao. But it seems that they're totally okay with picking Sivir and just pushing in that bottom lane. So I'm curious to see how they pick and ban around the bottom lane to see if they allow a sneaky on Lucian or not, and what the Sivir priority ends up being.
We'll have to see. Can't think of anything else to say.
Yeah, I think I hit on pretty much everything that I want.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and for some reason, Caps really likes to pick a Yasuo, so we'll have to see about that. I do think that a lot of the game is going to come down to pick and bans, so hopefully Reaper does a brain check on himself.
I think his brain has been pretty well checked recently, so I think as long as he doesn't come in too cocky and tries to just stick with the game plan instead of trying to get too cute with it, in terms of like flex picking and whatnot, I think we should be fine.
All right. Predictions for semifinals. First, G2 and IG.
I don't want to predict.
I think we have to. G2 IG. Who wins?
I'm gonna start with the G2 IG first. I'm gonna throw caution to the wind and say G2 beats IG 3-1 or 3-2. And
I feel like that's a hot take.
I think Perks has a lane kingdom and he will use it against whoever IG's mid laner is.
It's Rookie, who's been probably the best mid laner at Worlds.
So I'm gonna go for G2 to win, and then Cloud9's gonna beat Fnatic. I think it could definitely go to all 5 games, but I think Cloud9 will beat Fnatic. And we're gonna go to finals.
All right. Looking at the IG-G2 game, actually, Perks and Rookie are both like the best mid laners at Worlds right now, performance-wise, at least in lane. Included in that is Jensen and Scout from EDG. So that's actually going to be a pretty hype matchup. Watching the mid lane there. I think that IG is going to win. I feel like that they are a better team and that they are going to be Asia's last hope. For our game, I feel like if we were going to win, it was going to be a 3-2 matchup. But like, I feel like the game, the amount of games that are played at this point is just random. I like that. The Bionder team is ideally going to win, but like it doesn't matter how many games it takes. So I'm gonna go Cloud9 3-1.
Okay.
So I have Cloud9 and IG in the finals. You have G2 and Cloud9.
I have G2 and Cloud9 for the finals. Cloud9's gonna beat G2 and show that the US of A is the place to be for League of Legends this year.
Imagine the scenes on the street if Cloud9 were to win a world, and imagine how many skins would be sold.
Oh, that'd be so many
a
skins.
Cosplay sneaky skin, a Svenskeren spilling water.
Still scared.
It would have it all. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. So I think that's about it. See you guys next week for episode 100.
Yes, get excited for it. All right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.